it's a really important thing to learn as a younger actor, that when you get those opportunities, certainly around the set and on the breaks, you want to be respectful. But then when you get up there on to do the work, it's like if you're playing tennis. I can't hit the ball back to you hard unless you're smacking it at me. Mm-hmm. And every player bringing their A game raises the level of the whole experience. And that's something I really learned from both of them, that they brought their A game every night.
Oh, that's wonderful. Now, David, I think great. You had a question.
Yeah. Which one of you or your brother, takes after your dad more in the ways of acting?
You trying to get me in trouble? Let me see. I'm trying to think. Do I give the diplomatic answer, or do I give what I really think is the truth?
Well, you can tell it. It's just between us.
Just between us.
I think my brother Adam is a terrific actor. I think he's an amazing actor. I think so. By saying this, I'm not saying I think I'm a better actor than him, but I think stylistically, I think my work is a little more like my dad's in the earlier part of his career.
Okay, diplomatic.
Okay, that works for me. I tell you, that works for me.
And I hope nobody. Yeah. Can we bleep that out of the final?
You didn't say anything bad. You didn't say anything bad. It's just different. That's all. You're different from your brother's acting. Right?
Yeah. I think there are a lot of similarities, too. It's funny because I was playing tennis this morning with my coach, and I was playing doubles. We were playing doubles, and there was a woman who I had never played with. And my coach, he coaches a lot of people, and he introduces everybody by first name only. And we're taking a rest at one point, and Zach turns to this woman and says, "Tell him what you told me 5 minutes ago." And she said, "No, it's embarrassing." And he said, "No, tell him. He'll think it's funny." And she turned to me and she said, "Okay, well, what I said to Zach was that I said, I'm not a casting director, but if I was, I would cast you as Adam Arkin's younger brother."
Oh, my God.
And I started laughing, and Zach started laughing. And she said, "What's so funny?" And Zach was like, "He is Adam Arkin's younger brother." And she was like, "Really? Oh, my God." So, there are incredible. And then one time I was having a conversation with somebody in Grand Central Station, standing in the middle of Grand Central Station talking to a friend, and a woman walked by, and she got about 5 paces past us and stopped and turned around and looked at me and came walking back, and she said, "Excuse me, are you an Arkin?" And I said, "Yeah." She said, "Are you Tony's brother?" That's my younger brother. I said, "Yeah." She said, "I'm going to meet Tony for lunch right now." But
oh, my gosh.
She had never seen a photograph of me, and Tony and I don't look alike. Mm-hmm. We have different moms, so our coloring and everything is different. But she picked up the family connection just from the speech pattern. It was very bizarre.
Wow. Yeah. Do you get that a lot walking down the street from people?
Not walking down the street, but when I was bartending and stuff like that, I'd be talking to people. And the time that I was bartending, Adam he was on television all the time, so his voice was, and people would say, "God, you sound like that guy on Chicago Hope," or it's like, yeah. You want another martini? Leave me alone.
Oh, my gosh. So it could be a good and a bad thing all at the same time.
Yeah.
Well, what was your favorite play to play in?
Well, until 6 months ago, I would have said hands down Dinner with Friends, Donald Margulies' play. It was a great. It's a great play. It was a great role for me. It sort of really put me on the map in New York. I got a Drama Desk nomination. The play won the Pulitzer Prize. It was very exciting. And it's still done all the time. Then 6 months ago, I work a lot at a theater out here called South Coast Rep, which is one of the great regional theaters in the country, where plays like Dinner with Friends start. A lot of playwrights, Richard Greenberg and Donald Margulies, and some newer playwrights, they start their plays there and work on them there before they come to New York. And I'd done a couple of plays down there and had a pretty good relationship with them. And then last December, I'm sitting at home and I get an email from them, from the casting director down there, a wonderful woman named Joanne Deneau. She sends me this email, and all it says is, "I think you should read this. I'm just saying." And attached to it is a script. And I read the script, and it's a play about a 600-pound man who teaches expository writing online, who is dying of congestive heart failure.
Oh, wow.
And trying to heal his relationship with his daughter before he dies. And I read it in one sitting, and I called Joanne, and I said, well, the first thing I said was, I worry about typecasting, which she laughed at because I don't weigh 600 pounds.
No, right.
But then I said to her, you're going to do this like the Elephant Man, right? Just like sort of pretend. She said, no, we're going to do it. It will be with a suit. And
oh my gosh, you'd have to be really strong to wear something like that.
Oh, it was an incredibly moving and beautiful play. And I said, well, when are the auditions? And she said there won't be auditions. She said, you just answered the question. If you want to do it badly enough that you were willing to audition for it, you have the role.
Oh, that's great.
It was from that moment, we went into rehearsal on February 11th, I think. But from that moment in December, it was like December 15th, I dropped everything else and did nothing but prepare for that role. And it was the hardest thing I've ever done. It was harder than the bar exam. It was because the emotional journey was the hardest I've ever had to do in a play, and then the physicality and then just the logistics of wearing the suit. And it was an hour and 45 minutes in the makeup chair before the show every night, getting into the prosthetics. But it was also an incredibly moving play, and I never saw this because it took me 45 minutes to get out of everything when the show was over. But apparently there were many, many obese people. You know, the people who work in the theater said, we are getting many, many obese people coming to the play repeatedly. And when we were talking earlier about the importance of storytelling, you know, here was an author, a playwright who was courageous enough to write a character that when the curtain came up on this guy, almost universally the reaction of people in the audience was, I don't want to see this. I don't want to have to spend the next 2 hours looking at this and having this experience. And then over the course of the next 2 hours, the play just relentlessly and gently beckoned the audience closer and closer and closer to see the human being trapped inside this physicality, so that at the end of the play, when the lights would go out at the end of the play, I've never experienced this, there was total silence for a while. And the lights
people were
would
trying
come
to
up
catch their breath, you know?
Yeah. I mean, there would be total silence except for the sounds of some people just sobbing. And then the lights would come up on the cast there for the curtain call, and the silence would continue. And then the applause would start. It was just a really, really courageous thing for this guy to write, and I was really proud to be a part of it.
Well, it sounds like it. Is this something that you're going to be traveling doing in other states, or is it going to stay in California?
No, it had been done in New York already, and then we did this production here. It's being done all over the country. I couldn't do it again. I would do it again in, if there was going to be a Broadway production or a big production here in Los Angeles or in Chicago. But it was so physically demanding.
I can imagine. Physically and emotionally and mentally, everything. I mean, my gosh, with that guy. I can just picture this whole play in my mind, and I would be one of those people sobbing at the end, and and then, of course, giving the applause that is justly deserved.
They just did it in Chicago.
And I'm sorry I missed that.
Yeah, it's a beautiful story.
No, because I grew up on plays.
But he does. I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. I was going to say, I grew up on plays, and I like to take my kids, and I would love to have taken them to see that.
Yeah, he dies at the end, but he is able to heal his relationship with his daughter before that happens. So it's actually, as sad as it is, it's also very inspiring.
Right. Yeah, it makes people think about their lives, and what they should do before they pass, because you just never know when that's going to happen, and you need to reach out to the people that you want to make amends with, and go on from there.
Yeah.
Wow. So, thank you for doing that. I mean, that's just, I have no words.
Well, it was a great privilege. It was a great privilege to get to play that part. So to answer your question, those are my two favorite roles, those two experiences.
Yeah, and I can see why. Now, you are also an acting coach. How did you get involved with that?
I got involved in that quite by accident. I was meeting a friend for lunch who was studying at HB Studio in New York, which is where I had studied years before with the legendary acting teacher, Uta Hagen. And then I also studied there with Austin Pendleton, who you may know from Chicago theater. He works at Steppenwolf quite a bit. He directs there. Oh,
I know Steppenwolf, yeah.
He's going to be directing Tribes this fall at Steppenwolf. And actually the young woman who played my daughter in the play in The Whale is going to be in Tribes with Austin directing it, because she said, "Could you recommend me to Austin?" I was like, "Of course I'll recommend you. You're fantastic." And I recommended her, and he hired her. So you should go see that if you have a chance. But so I was meeting a friend for lunch, and I'm standing in the lobby at HB Studio waiting for my friend, and the director of the school comes walking through the lobby, and he recognized me, and he stopped, and he said, "Hey, what are you doing here?" I said, "I'm meeting a friend for lunch." He said, "Oh, would you like to teach here?" I said, I hadn't thought of that. He said, "Well, think about it." And I got in touch with him a week later, and I said, "I would be interested in teaching. What do you want me to teach?" He said, "Well, what do you want to teach?" And I said, "Okay, well, let me think about that for a while." And I got back in touch a week later, and I said, "I'd like to teach two things. So I'd like to teach just a regular scene study class, but then I'd also like to teach a very strict class in Hagen technique, just her exercises. That's all it will be." And he said, "Well, that would be interesting. We could try to offer that." He said, "But that might be a little too dry for, people, that if the class was just that." I said, "I'd like to give it a try." And over the next few years of my teaching there, that was the class that always filled up. I mean, I had a good number of people in my scene study class as well, but the class in her technical exercises was always full, and it was very exciting. So then when I came out here to L.A., I started teaching privately as well. And then I also teach in the conservatory down at South Coast Rep, which is the theater near here that I work at a lot.
Okay. Well, that's interesting.
And I love teaching.
You have a lot of interesting stories. What advice would you give someone just starting out in the business?
Study. And really learn what you're doing before you start worrying about getting an agent and a manager. So many people watch television and go to movies and they say, oh, they're walking and talking